The Seventh Tower by Garth Nix. Book 6. The Violet Keystone. Chapter 6. There were no spirit shadows left in the cavern, which was good, thought Mila. But there was nothing left of the makeshift fort either, and her little band of Icecarls was tiring rapidly as they dashed from side to side in their efforts to avoid the violet wave. It hadn't lessened in size or power at all, though it was becoming more erratic in direction and harder to predict every time it rebounded from a wall. "Left!" shouted Sailsin, and they all ran left, until the shield mother shouted, "Stop!" and then, "Dart, take it! Right a bit!" The violet wave missed them by a few stretches, hurtling past toward the far wall. It would be a few minutes before it came sweeping back in at a new angle. "Have you tried reversing whatever it was you did?" asked Malin. She didn't look at Mila. Like everyone else, she kept her eyes on the wave. "No," snapped Mila. Every time she started to focus on the sunstone, the violet wave would come back. Someone would grab her and drag her out of the way, and her concentration would be gone. Besides, all she could think of was the avalanche. Trying not to think of an avalanche only made the image even stronger in her head. So even if she could concentrate on her sunstone, it was likely she would just create another violet wave. 2 would kill everyone for certain. "We'll have to try one of the doors again," Sailsin said grimly. "We can't run away from this thing forever." "Odris, have a look and see what's behind that one," ordered Mila, pointing to one of the doors. There were only 2 exits left to try, out of the 5. One stone door, and part of the corridor behind it had been totally smashed by the wave, and was now impassable. 2 others were so heavily barricaded and defended that there was no chance of getting through. "I'll get my head pulled off if I poke it through," Audris protested. "You have a look if you want." "I can stick my head through a closed door," said Mila. "You can. Would you prefer to get swept up by the wave?" "I'm not tired," said Audris mulishly. "I can keep away from—" "Left!" shouted Sailsin. "Left!" Audris was the only one who hadn't been watching the wave. As Sailsin shouted, she moved right instead of left. "This way!" yelled Mila. "This way!" The wave rushed on. Audris, caught in front of it, didn't follow Mila. Instead, she ran in front of the wave before launching herself into the air and hurling herself at the door Mila had indicated. A second after she went through it, the wave hit with a deafening crash. Once again it rebounded to groans from all the Icecarls. "Surely it has to stop soon," puffed Malin. "I did not think sunstones were so strong." "Neither did I," muttered Mila. All the light magic she had seen before had only lasted as long as the caster concentrated on it. This thing she had created seemed to have a life of its own. Mila anxiously looked at the door Audris had gone through. She could feel the spirit shadow's absence, a sort of dull ache that was hard to pin down, rather like a toothache. But at least there was no worse feeling. If Audris was being hurt by other spirit shadows, Mila would feel some of her pain. "Head for the door," Mila ordered after a quick look to make sure they would still be able to avoid the wave's return passage. "Audris isn't fighting, so maybe we can get through." They were halfway over to it when the door opened. But instead of Audris, there was a chosen woman, a sunstone in her hand and an unfamiliar spirit shadow at her back, a huge bird thing with eyebrows like horns. Mila opened her mouth to order a sudden charge, but snapped it shut as another chosen emerged behind the woman. This time it was someone she knew. Tal's eccentric great-uncle Ebbet, now clad in a weird assortment of crystal armor plates in many different shining colors. To top it all off, he was wearing a golden metal saucepan on his head, cushioned by a scarf of bright indigo. Mila couldn't help smiling. From their very first meeting, when Tal had taken her to his great-uncle's lair, she had liked Ebbet. That meeting seemed very long ago. Now Tal was who knew where. She was surrounded, but just the sight of Ebbet brought sudden hope.
"Quick, quick!"
Ebbet called out.
"This is an escape in progress."
The Icecarls needed no urging. The wave was already rushing down upon them. Despite their weariness, they started to run for the door, which was wide enough for 3 people to pass through at one time.
"What is that?"
exclaimed Ebbet as he saw the wave. The woman with him exclaimed something, too. Then both of them raised their sunstones as one, and twin beams of intense white light shot out to meet the wave. As the white rays hit, the wave faltered and slowed. But it did not stop fully, nor disappear, as the two chosen seemed to expect. "Too strong," gasped the woman. "I cannot hold it." Her light snapped off, and she fell back to be caught in the gentle claws of her spirit shadow. Ebbet kept up his white ray, but the wave began to speed up again. Ebbet started to back up, passing through the doorway with the last of the Icecarls, the wilder Jarek, who was still in his post-fury state. He could move and fight quickly enough, but he would not speak, and his eyes remained strange and distant.
"Get ready to slam door,"
instructed Ebbet. Sweat was pouring off his face, as if he were physically holding back a great weight. His sunstone was so bright that Mila could not look at it, and the white ray was equally blinding.
"Now!"
shouted Ebbet, and the white ray disappeared. Mila and Sailson hurled the door shut and stepped back, just as the wave hit the other side.